Hey guys, what's up? This is What the Tech, and this is the iPad Air. It's a lot less complicated than it looks. Yes, it does use the same design as the iPad Pro. It has the same charging USB-C port. It also uses the same second generation Apple Pencil and the same keyboard case. But I swear, it's actually different. Let's check it out. This iPad marks a design shift for Apple's overall iPad lineup. Will we ever see a Pro-like design go all the way down to $329? I doubt that personally, but given that this has a more acceptable price point of $599, I think that's something most people can expect and reason with. This device had a very significant update this year compared to years prior, obviously both on the outside and inside. Starting with what we have on the outside, which is probably the most obvious differentiating feature, is the new modern design language. It looks pretty much like the iPad Pro, sharing the same industrial squared off edges as we see in the iPad Pros as well as the iPhone 12 series. The power button is a bit larger than usual. That's because it's also sharing a Touch ID sensor. More on that later. The iPad has 4 speaker grills, both on the left and right, or top and bottom depending how you hold it, and it comes in a wider assortment of colors this year, with the 2 new colors being sky blue and green. Blue is what we have here. Now for I/O wise, this also gets Apple's modern treatment, which means no headphone jack anywhere to be seen, just like the Pros. I personally don't get this move myself because if you're using a tablet, it's going to be a personal media consumption device, far more than an iPhone. I think personally for media consumption, you should have a headphone jack to stick your headphones in. A lot of people have wired headphones still, but that's just my take on it. However, even though we did lose headphones, we did get USB-C. The iPad Air is now Apple's newest product to make the jump over to the light side, supporting USB-C charging. Now, I can't wait for USB-C to show up on all of Apple's iPhones, and until then, we'll just count our victories when we can. This is a solid step, and soon enough, even the entry-level iPad will probably have USB-C, but share the same design, my guess. Moving away from that, let's look at the front end with the display. The iPad Air has a 10.9-inch screen that's just a little bit smaller than the 11-inch iPad Pro. That's because the iPad Pro has bezels that are just a touch thinner. Within the iPad's Air bezels is a front-facing camera on top with no true depth sensor array, so no Face ID. All things considered, you'd be hard-pressed to see a difference between the 10.9-inch iPad Air and the 11-inch iPad Pro when placed side to side. That's until you start using the iPad Air itself. The Air, unlike the Pro, is capped at a 60Hz display refresh rate. And although that's something that's immediately noticeable to me, let's face it, not a lot of people who plan on getting iPad Air are going to notice it, because not a lot of people have experienced 120Hz display rates yet, especially people who use Apple products. Also, if you don't play games on your tablet or plan on getting an Apple Pencil, which is another $130 add-on, you won't really be taking full advantage of the 120Hz display anyways. I mean, it's a nice thing to have, I like it, but the A14 chip makes this machine snappy and fast already. Adding ProMotion will just make it feel overall more smooth, and also adding ProMotion will just increase the price of the iPad Air and make it too close to the iPad Pro. Another differentiating aspect of the iPad Air is that it has Touch ID instead of Face ID. It's just about as fast as all the other fingerprint readers, but by default, Apple has it set where if you want to use Touch ID to unlock, you have to swipe up to enter, just like if you had Face ID. Go into settings, turn on rest to unlock, and with that done, you just have to leave your finger on it and it'll let you in after a bit. That standby time where you have to wait almost a full second makes it seem slow. If Apple can speed up that transition or cut down animations, it would make it seem faster and then I would have no complaints. Now, back to the Apple Pencil. The iPad Air, like the Pro, uses the second generation Apple Pencil. This is the one that attaches magnetically to the side here for both charging and pairing. You don't have to buy an adapter or attach it to the lightning port, which was always a kludgy solution to begin with. iPadOS 14 brought with it scribble support, which gives people more reason to use the Apple Pencil across the entire OS. I myself seldom use it personally, and I would much rather use that money towards a good keyboard solution instead, either Apple's or Logitech's, for faster note-taking in class. However, those two accessories do bump up the cost a bit more and pushes it towards iPad Pro or laptop territory. With iPadOS, I really do think you could use this to replace a computer or laptop, but again, that's with additional add-ons, so that sticker price is going to increase. Now for everyday usage, I found this super light and easy to use around the house, or just to carry around in general. When walking around, you can barely feel the weight, and when you throw it into your bag, you forget it's even there. And now I believe most people are going to throw it in a case because that's just a logical thing to do. So you are going to add some weight to this, but overall, it shouldn't be much. Now when it comes to battery life, this is something else pretty amazing. We shouldn't be too surprised at this point because Apple really got its iPad game down. I easily got around 2 to 3 days battery life. Never more than 3 days because when I actually had to listen to a class lecture, this would zap that battery life and bring it back down to normal. but after that, it's pretty much fine.
Hey guys, forgot to do this part of my review, but I noticed it when I was editing. So here's the front-facing camera for video purposes, either for FaceTime or Zoom sessions. This is what you're most likely going to look like with ideal light. I have a light diffuser right in front of me, but if you don't have that, it's going to be a little darker. I'm going to turn off the light right now. And here's how it looks like without my assisted light, just my room light, so it's a good idea of it. Alright, bye.
2 days for most usage, and standby time is excellent. However, it should be noted that most other manufacturers are getting better at standby time now, so Apple is no longer the exception in my opinion in this category. For media consumption, it's pretty awesome having almost the entire iPad. For media consumption, it's pretty awesome having almost the entire display used for just displaying documents and articles to read. I end up enjoying myself, and having those two top and bottom bezels gone is something you're going to notice if you're upgrading from previous Air. Now, when it comes to listening to your media, the speakers on this get pretty loud. It's almost as loud as the iPad Pro, and if I had to bet, I'm pretty sure it is just as loud as the iPad Pro. Now, as I mentioned earlier, there are 4 speaker grills, but only 2 of them are actually real. 2 of these grills are faux speaker grills, just to give that better design aesthetic. If anything, I'd say the iPad Air has slightly less bass, but if you're just talking about projecting sound, this can easily fill a medium-sized room or almost a large-sized room. When I do my dishes test, for example, I didn't complain about clarity at all, and I never had to raise the volume. It handled it quite well. And real fast, we'll go over the specs, and because it's at the end of the video, you can tell just how important that is for the iPad Air. Powering under the hood is Apple's A14 Bionic processor, 4 GB of RAM, a 1640 by 2360p liquid retina display, capping at 500 nits of brightness, a 12 megapixel rear camera paired with a 7 megapixel front-facing camera, and Bluetooth 5 out of the box. Now, as you may know, I'm not a big fan of tablet photography. I made that very clear in all my other tablet reviews, especially iPad reviews. But one thing I can say is that I was actually pleasantly surprised by how good the pictures were on this. Now, they weren't great by any means, but they were better than I expected. I personally believe that it's because of the A14 Bionic chip and its new dedicated image processor, and here are some of the images to show you. I mean, as I said, it's not great, but it's pretty good, and I had fun sneaking up to birds for you guys. This will definitely capture your documents in high definition. And if you have the means to splurge and upgrade from Apple's budget iPad of $329, I really think you should get this, because although this is not the cheapest iPad, it is the best value one. I recently did a review on that budget entry-level iPad, and when you move up from the iPad, you honestly get a much better looking device that's more aesthetically appeasing, and it comes with more color options as well. Now, this is the hard part of this review. Where exactly does this iPad Air stack up with the rest of Apple's lineup? It obviously costs more than Apple's budget entry-level iPad. That one starts at $329, while this starts at $599. But the thing is with this iPad is that you're also getting more niceties as well. If you are able to splurge on this upgrade, you get a much better modern looking design that looks just like the Pro in almost every sense of the word. But what makes it different, besides this here, is that you get more color options as well. And although these colors are more mute and pastel, probably because of the aluminum finish, people like having more color options, and that's obviously going to make this a big seller. You also get a bigger full body display that now more and more people are upgrading to new iPhones. They're going to want that. If you have a newer iPhone with that notch, you're going to notice that your old iPad has ugly white bezels still. This doesn't. And now also when we compare this to the iPad Pro, which officially makes this a step down product, all it does is, well, it lacks 120 Hz refresh rate, a larger variant because the iPad Pro comes in 12.9 inches as well, and that's about it. At the moment, at the day of recording, this has a faster processor. I bet that the next generation iPad Pro is going to have a faster processor as well, but it's most likely going to be built on the same A14 architecture. In the end, this may be the easiest, most truthful part of this review. If I didn't make YouTube videos for fun, I'd probably get an iPad Air, because then I actually make my thumbnails on my iPad Pro, and without that, there's no reason. Yeah, I have a 12.9 inch iPad Pro, but my laptop works fine too. This is actually easier to carry around the house. I hate carrying around my 12.9 inch iPad Pro around. Yeah, I like reading articles on it, and it feels nice to flip through the pages, but so what? I'm not going to pay more money for that. Oh well, that's just my view in the matter though. If there's anything else you guys can take away from this video, walk away with this. If I didn't make YouTube videos for fun, I'd probably recommend for myself an iPad Air, because it looks like the iPad Pro, it uses the Apple Pencil like the iPad Pro, It has USB-C, which I'm actually a big fan of outside of the tech scene. And plus, it handles all the things I can throw at it and then some. You know if you need an iPad Pro. And if you don't know that, you probably can get away with an iPad Air. All right, thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.